With anagrams and sequences and orders, the important thing is to always count and check that what you think is right is right. It's the case with sequences, because you need to count and make sure that you figure out what the pattern is. It's the same with anagrams. You need to go through and make sure that every letter that should be in there is in there and that you haven't included any extra ones. So let's first of all look at the odd one out, because that's another good one to check. And it's difficult this time because with non-verbal reasoning you had pictures and you could really look at the details and think, well, that triangle isn't in that place, and etc. But it's different with verbal reasoning because instead of pictures you're thinking about concepts. So if we look at question 5, you've got music, radio, telephone, television, magazine. They're all media related things, and it's quite difficult to try and get your head around how one of them could quite be odd. But if you think about the concept of all of them, you can hear 4 of them, but you cannot hear a magazine. So therefore that one would be the odd one out. So you've got to sort of look outside of the box, you know, using a cliche. You've got to think, well, differently. You've got to think about the concept of the word rather than just the word itself. That's not always the case, but it's always good to just check with that one and give it a try. And the differences may well be incredibly subtle. For instance, with question 6, there is a very subtle difference between those numbers there, which means that one of them is the odd one out. So, you know, think very carefully and think, you know, broader than just the word or number that you're being presented with. With anagrams, a trick that I've always done is writing out the letters in the word out in a circle, and then it somehow becomes a lot easier to try and see combinations of different words that can create parts of a word. So try something like that, and if it works for you, then that may well help you with anagrams and trying to figure out, you know, whether some words can be seen in others, you know, that sort of thing. Always be sure to read the question carefully, because some anagram questions will say to you which word cannot be found in this bigger word, which word can be found in this bigger word, which of these is not an anagram of whatever. You know, always read it very carefully to make sure you know what you're being asked. And with the sequences, you know, looking at the alphabet and trying to figure out what sequence you're looking for, count is the simplest way, especially if you're given an alphabet on the page. Go through and physically count up, you know, what letter you're trying to find and what the pattern is. It's going to be the easiest way to check that you've got it right. Count it more than once if you want. I always do, just to make sure that what I thought was correct is definitely correct. It's just about checking, and that involves making sure you've read the question carefully, counting through what you think is correct, that sort of thing. You know, give yourself time to go through and check, and that way you can be sure you've got it right.